the large majority of the content that is starting to become mainstream looks at anxiety as a bad thing and has the villainization lens, if you will, about anxiety. And honestly, anxiety is one of the most freaking cool, powerful things.
The issue with anxiety is that people just stay in that ruminative thought over and over and over and over again. So it's like anxious thought, negative emotion, anxious thought, negative emotion, anxious thought, negative emotion. Hey everybody, it's Bianca.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Emilia.
I don't think I've ever met someone who doesn't struggle with anxiety. And I don't think I've ever met someone who overcame it without a shit ton of therapy.
Facts.
I think people try way too hard to deny its existence instead of like learning about it and leaning into it and trying to understand where it came from and how to use it. I think we just get too enmeshed in the feeling and in the experience of it. And that's what I want us to kind of have a dialogue about today, about just how we can start to really use these things, which I've never heard somebody else talk about, of like using anxiety. Most other podcasts and most other channels just talk about how to get rid of anxiety.
Yes.
I don't think that's necessary. I think we need to learn how to partner with it and use it just like any other emotion. So
I agree.
I want us to do it different. So I guess why do you think people struggle with it as badly as they do? Because like I made a bold ass claim. But it's true. I've never had a client who didn't struggle with it. I've never met a person who doesn't struggle with it. They might struggle on their own accord with it, but like I've never met someone who doesn't have it. So I guess I'll start there. Like, why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has been really cool, because I've, speaking from a very intimate dance, that I have been a dance partner with anxiety for a long time. So at age 7 or 9, anxiety was the first thing that actually brought me into the therapy room.
Really?
And I first got therapy for anxiety. That is at least what it was labeled at the time, because I was so anxious that it started to impact my sleepovers. So that was the surface level, right? So like I didn't want to go to some of my friends' houses because my anxiety, right, quote unquote, was the thing that was having me think about whether or not I was going to be sexually abused at my friend's house or not. The whole backstory there we won't get into, but what I have personally experienced and what I've learned from the research and working with people is that anxiety is usually a preemptive form of trying to protect ourselves in some way, shape, or form. And there was a really cool quote that I actually saw recently that I appreciate very much, coming from a developmental standpoint, of when parents are raising their children, their level of impatience becomes the child's level of anxiety. And right? Powerful. I'll say that again.
Wow.
A parent's level of impatience where their child becomes the child's anxiety. So
that is so applicable to so many of my clients. I had a client literally tell me the other day, his dad would try to teach him how to spell, and he compared it to a torture scene where the dad was he wouldn't even tell him what he was doing wrong, but the dad was like, spell this word. And he was a little kid, so he obviously didn't get it right. And the dad was like, no, try again. No, try again. No, try again. And then he just starts screaming at him because he couldn't understand how to spell it correctly. And then he started getting terrified of having to do his homework and having to do all of these things because that level of anxiety and fear that he was having caused him to have those issues.
Wow. Wow. That is horrifying to
Brutal.
even imagine what that must have been like in his little body. And
Well,
here's the thing, anxiety sticks with us. It's not like it just starts there. It sticks with us, and it's kind of like our BFF again. And I love the frame that you open with of like the large majority of the content that is starting to become mainstream looks at anxiety as a bad thing and
yeah.
has the villainization lens, if you will, about anxiety. And honestly, anxiety is one of the most freaking cool, powerful things. I mean, I think of Inside Out too. You and I watched that and we talked about it in movie club. It was amazing. And that's the character that I for sure resonate the most with, aside from Joy, because anxiety is so powerful. She has the ability, right? And I say she because I've obviously partnered with my anxiety and I've gendered her. But it's so powerful, right? The part of us that is anxious, or the part of us that uses anxiety as a symptom, as an indicator, it's a signal, just like anything else that comes up in the body, from my perspective.
Well, I mean, most people have an experience like you do or like my client does where your anxiety is coming from a fear that isn't getting addressed or like a root problem that isn't getting addressed. I mean, how old were you in the story that you opened this up with? Was 7, 8
7.
when you
Yeah,
when you
around
went to
7.
therapy?
Yeah, I think.
You had a terrible thing happen to you. Of course you started having anxiety afterwards. That anxiety wasn't just stemming from nowhere. I mean, you were scared shitless,
Yeah.
terrified because it happened in your own home. So, what's going to happen if you're out somewhere else where your parents, who are supposed to protect you, weren't and didn't know what was
Mm-hmm.
happening? So, like, no
Mm-hmm.
shit, when you go somewhere else, you're going to be blatantly terrified.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand when it comes to anxiety. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be some terrible thing that's happened, right?
No.
Like
Yeah,
it's
you can be
not
anxious with
it's
anything.
not these big T traumas like what you experienced or like what my client experienced, but a lot of the times it you and I both know it's the micro traumas. It's the little micro tears that happen, and you have
Mm.
that happen enough times, you start to question everything.
Well,
And that
the anxiety starts to question everything.
well, so you start to question everything, that rumination turns into anxiety. It
Mm.
turns into this perpetual fear of like, what's going to happen? Am I going to be okay? Is something
Yeah.
bad going to happen to me? How am I going to make it in this situation? If you sit and think about it, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Anxiety actually makes a lot of sense. It's a signal. It's a signal that's trying to tell you, I don't feel safe here.
Mm.
I don't feel in control.
Yeah.
Like when you were that age, what was going through your mind? It wasn't just anxiety. Like what were the specific thoughts? Because those thoughts were trying to tell you something like I need a tool or I
Mm-hmm.
need a strategy or I need someone to freaking see that I'm like, hello, like
Mm-hmm.
something's not right here. So
Yeah.
what was that for you?
Right. And these thoughts happen so young, and oftentimes before we're even pre-verbal. Um, these thoughts, although they might not necessarily take full form, it's powerful. So for me, going back to, it's really difficult even to go back to that level of mine because I
Mm.
didn't. I, in hindsight, was so dissociative from my body and from my mind that it's hard to scan. But if I could imagine and get back and try to connect to that version of a younger Emilia, it was certainly, um, I'm I'm so afraid. I don't trust people. I don't trust that I'm safe. Um, what's going to happen to my body? Um, will I have to tell my parents?
Oh,
What will I be? Am I damaged? Am I broken now? Will people still love me? Right? Like things like that.
So like
Those are the thoughts.
real core belief generating
Oh yeah.
thoughts. Someone's
Also,
not
like,
gonna love me? Jesus
how does someone not
Christ, Em.
know? Why am I so alone in this? Why do I feel like I'm the problem? This isn't fair. Like things like that, And so like young thoughts are like that. So yeah, like, and anxiety was a signal to of that, the thoughts that are combined with and now I know it from a biochemical level of like actual physiological response to, which
Yeah.
was fear. Anxiety is an emotion, right? It's the elevated heart rate, it's the sweaty palms, how those physiological sensations show up. But it's also the preemptive, do I need to disconnect from my body again? Like those things. And so like our parts often, and again, kind of layering the IFS lens in here, our parts will send a signal like anxiety to us to try to help even get our own attention, like, and I can look back at anxiety then, and I can also look at anxiety now, which is like, how am I going to plant? Right. I was talking about earlier today, like it's beautiful out right now. And tomorrow, which will be, a Sunday, I'm so excited to plant seeds for the insects for the spring to really contribute to the environment, right? Like, and so I get excited for that. What's the difference between excitement and anxiety, right? It's our thoughts. It's how we label things. The signal is my body is aroused. I'm excited to go get after and contribute. But anxiety isn't. Yeah, when we fuse with it, it can really take over. It can disrupt your sleep. It can put you in a very hyper aroused stress response where you're just going after so many things, connecting to so many different pain bodies and aspects of your past out of fear of making sure that the future isn't riddled with harm.
Hi everyone, my name is JC DaCosta, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Evolve Ventures, and to let you know that it is a community where you can be your authentic self. I personally have experienced a place where I can tell my story and know that I'll find somebody who has shared a similar experience. It's a community of empathy, of leadership, of growth, of opportunity, and it's just a phenomenal community with budding and growing leaders who have a voice, and it's a forum and a platform. All of this good conversation, and it's meaningful conversation. So I am grateful for Evolve Ventures and its leadership, and thank you so much for listening to my spot. Take care.
I just got wicked anxiety because the audio screeched and I just jumped.
So, B, like one of the things I remember actually, I think I remember. So, you and I were in Otis, which is in the Berkshires for anyone that's listening. And we were on a walk. And at the time, you were asking a couple questions. What's the difference between, I think it was like,
we're talking about relationships because I was going on a date.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I brought up the conversation around the difference between anxiety and excitement and how to tell the difference, because when it comes to relationships, we get so aroused, right? Our energy resources get so excited and nervous, and that's kind of the bridge of living. Like anxiety is a good thing. But if we come from a background of people labeling it as bad and pathologizing it and that it's only harmful, how are we supposed to open up our eyes to how amazing it can be? I mean, what have you seen from clients to really go from the harm that the anxiety has done to them, or quote unquote, manage them in a way that wasn't optimal or helpful, whatever, to actually befriending their anxiety, recognizing that it is in fact a signal that is produced from their own beautiful biochemistry as a way to try to serve their system in a functional, adaptive way? What have you seen in that journey? Because I think per this episode, what people might really be needing in this is how to depathologize anxiety and how to really see how it can make us better. And what does that trek even look like?
One of the things that's not talked about regarding anxiety is anxiety isn't a cause. Anxiety is an effect. Anxiety is something that happens in the aftermath. Like, it's both, right?
In the aftermath of what, though?
So our anxiety is developed because we are lacking something. We're lacking a skill. We're lacking a capability. We're lacking a insight, a feeling of certainty, a feeling of capability. Like, the times that I was the most anxious in my life, it was because I didn't think I was going to be able to handle something.
Do you think that that's because of a lack or an underdevelopment? Just wanting to clarify the frame. Okay.
Both. I mean, I didn't have a certain skill, or I didn't have it to the degree that I needed it to be able to be successful.
Okay.
So when you can really understand what anxiety is trying to tell you, you can actually go do something about it. The issue with anxiety is that people just stay in that ruminative thought over and over and over and over again. So it's like anxious thought, negative emotion, anxious thought, negative emotion, anxious thought, negative emotion. But there's nothing happening after that that leads to you then doing something. Like, well, when it comes to you and your circumstances, you were anxious probably because you didn't feel safe enough to go tell anybody.
Facts.
Or you're a young child and you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Is this even my fault? Did I do something wrong? Like, that led to a really destructive belief that you had, that you did something. Yeah. And so, of course, now, because that is now your frame, that's now the way that you're seeing the world. It's like everything is being interpreted through that lens. So, of course, you're then always anxious about, am I going to do something when I go to their house and something's going to happen to me? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? What are they going to do? There was no behavior that you could have done at that time. That leads people into their entire life. Like, you and I see this all the time. The symptoms people experience in their adulthood is usually stemming from a wound that happened in childhood. Not always, but more
like
often than not.
80% of the time, 90%.
But more often than not, yeah. It builds from that point.
Yeah.
So, like, we're seeing all of these people who are basically wounded little children who feel incapable of navigating the world. They feel incompetent. And then they're scared of everything. Like, I had a client yesterday, I know you're about to say a story, but like, I had a client that I saw yesterday. Oh my God, I've never wanted to climb through the screen and just hug somebody more than I did in that moment. He's 30-something years old, still lives at home with his parents, can't get a job, is struggling with debilitating depression and anxiety because he grew up as a young kid with foreign parents who didn't know how to do anything. And they instilled this massive sense of fear and incompetence within him, to where he's now like, I don't know how to do anything. And I'm terrified of leaving my house because I'm terrified of not being able to handle any situation that happens to me. If someone talks to me, I don't know how to talk to them. If someone comes up to me, I don't know how to ask them for things or give them answers. Like, he's anxious as hell about doing anything. That came from him being a little kid with parents who didn't teach him because they didn't know. Anxiety it's a signal that something is wrong. Just like depression, just like PTSD, just like any other challenge that you're facing. It's a signal. When you can understand it and partner with it, meaning like, what is this trying to tell me? I keep having these same anxious thoughts over and over again. What can I do with this? What is it trying to tell me? What's the thing that I need to go learn or cultivate or remove to work with this better?
Yeah, for me, it was something's up. Anxiety is always the something's up, something's off.
Yeah.
And definitely something's wrong. You know, when I would partner with my anxiety, that's really where it would come from. Something's wrong, something's up, something's off. And so between those three thought triads, when we, really the bridge is to be able to partner with anxiety, you have to be able to get curious about what is that signal saying, right? That's what the through line of this episode. Anxiety can make you better if you maintain a level of curiosity about what the signal is trying to,
100%.
what your body signal is trying to tell you, what your body signal is trying to make you aware of or inform you of. It's like there's so many different times where we have that gut instinct or that gut feeling that something was off, something's up. Anxiety, no doubt, was present. So anxiety is an emotion. Anxiety is also a feeling. Anxiety, is a signal. Anxiety is a biochemical response to when something's up, when something's off, when something's wrong. And everyone experiences anxiety. It's just to a certain degree, to a specific scale. We actually did one of our Out of the Mud events we had done something along the lines of this episode title, like how it can make me better, but how to partner with it specifically. We got into it, and what it looks and feels like to every single one is going to be different. And I'll just read a couple of quotes that I saw come through from some of the respondents, obviously keeping them anonymous. But my body feels rigid and locked. I feel trapped. I feel uncertain. It feels paralyzing to me. For me, this is dried mouth, heartbreak quickens, or my heart rate quickens. A voice in my head that needs to be put in check sometimes pop up. It feels like there's 100 tabs open. And I just can't find where the music is playing on my screen, and I just can't slow down and focus. It becomes a frenzy of searching, right? The world feels different. I get teleported somewhere else, alert, heightened senses, mind racing, right? So that anxiety shows up very different for each and every single one of us. And so we all have our anxiety footprints. My question to our listeners to join in this dialogue, to really reflect on this, and for you and I be to really, as people helping in this growth journey, so many people to partner with that anxiety, is what does your unique signal look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like in your body? In attuning to that, how can we attune to that signal better? And what question serves us? What is wrong? What is up? What is off? What question serves us the best? And how can we clear the channels that curiosity can come forward to really listen to what that feeling, what that interpretation, what that physiological response has to say?
Cool. What's your episode suggestion?
So in closing, I actually thought that this episode would be really powerful because of the fact that Simone Biles, we did this episode number 383. Simone Biles swears by therapy. Here's why you can too. You started this episode saying, I don't think I've met anyone that's gotten through or partnered with their anxiety without therapy. And Simone Biles, is someone that we talked about in that episode. There's a documentary, and the anxiety as an Olympic athlete at that level, I can only imagine the pressure, especially with what she's gone through. So that would be mine. What about yours?
357, how to tell between your intuition and fear. Anxiety is sometimes a mix of both. It's your intuition telling you something is off, but it's also fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, and learning the difference. It will be able to help you ask these questions better and then be able to really suss out a game plan in response, because you're going to react to intuition way different than you're going to with fear. So that is a good episode for anyone who wants a little bit more about that. Thanks. All right, friends, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.